Hi everyone, and welcome to the 4th day of the Arab Film Festival. My name is Neamah Hussein, and I'm here today with Samia Khalaf and Mirella Toncheva, two of the filmmakers on KTEER TAYYEB. We're here today for Beyond Cinema, a talk about Arab cinema and virtual reality. This year is the first time we've had virtual reality films on our program, and I'm super excited to bring to you two of the wonderful women who have worked on this movie. So Samia, would you like to start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and your history?
Yeah, thank you. So I am a Palestinian Lebanese artist. My background is 2D animation. I grew up in Kuwait and then moved to the States when I was 17, where I majored in animation and kind of worked in like mobile games and cartoons and eventually VR.
Oh, wonderful.
And I also teach at San Jose State part-time.
That's amazing. Mirella, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure thing. I'm from Bulgaria originally. I moved to the US around when I was a teenager, and I studied 2D animation up in New York and worked in TV and switched over to video games and did some 3D work, and now I'm a storyboard artist and helping things.
That's amazing. So how did you both meet?
That's a good story. I was just finishing college and then applying for a job, and she interviewed me.
I was interviewing her.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the first time we met.
This surprise is real. I actually didn't know this story, so please tell me a little bit more about this.
So it was a classic, like I go up to a door and I have to interview someone for a job, and I open up and there was Samia. That was the first time I had seen her.
I was so nervous, and she was just like so straight faced. I was like, oh my god, she hates me. Like, you even say hello, like I was like, she hates me. I'm not getting the job. What is happening?
Wow. Okay, so for anyone who's had a terrible interview experience, just make sure you keep that connection up with your interviewer, because maybe it'll lead to some beautiful art at the end of it.
No, she wasn't a bad interviewer. She actually had good questions and serious questions.
Okay.
I was like, oh yeah, she's organized. I hope I get to work with her someday.
Yeah, I researched
Wow.
your page and I noted down questions to ask you, and I had specific topics, and I was ready.
Yeah.
So how did it go from there to this partnership that you have today?
Yeah, the first day I started the job, she took me out for soup, and I was like, oh my god, she's my best friend.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to like, work with her,
Wow.
like on a personal project.
Yeah, and we would go together to draw together and hang out, and we had some common like friends, and so it just blossomed to a natural fun friendship and a partnership, and we love, going out and drawing together and sketching and talking about art.
Wow. So you're the director and the co-writer of the film KTEER TAYYEB, which was on our program, and you were the storyboarder and the co-writer. So how did that friendship lead you both to collaborate on this film?
So I was when I was pitching the movie, I didn't know like it was gonna happen or not. But then when it was gonna happen, I was just by myself. I didn't like really reach out to Mirella yet, and I was like, oh my god, I don't know what I'm doing. Mirella, hello, please say yes. I need your help. We're doing a movie.
Yeah, I think it was, what I specifically remember about it is a really pretty moment where we were in a park together and we were just eating food and you were just kind of workshopping with me, and we had this like nice long discussion about food and connection and family, and that specifically I really remember fondly. And so when you contacted me, it was like an instant, yeah, of course.
And did you both always know that this film was going to be a virtual reality film, or did it start off as something else and eventually evolve into that concept?
I think I knew from the beginning, because making a film takes a lot of work and you need a full team. And the cool thing about Quill is that you can actually make a whole film by yourself in there.
Tell us a little bit more about Quill. What is that?
So Quill is a free program that anyone can get, where you can go inside the program and you can draw around you and animate and do cool art, but in VR.
Okay.
So if anyone wants to see it, you actually have to have a VR headset to go on that space and kind of look like on the space.
Got it. So are you creating in the headset?
Yeah.
Or are you, okay, not on a 2D flat computer screen?
Yeah, it has to be in the headset. So basically imagine someone holding like a tube of paint in real life. And if you do this, the paint just gets stuck in the air. And now you have like a table.
Wow. So I'm assuming that your experience for both of you as designers and animators at the beginning has helped you translate that experience into a virtual reality space? What was that learning curve like, if any?
So that was something specifically for me is I didn't really work in virtual reality before this film. It was thanks to Samia that got introduced to it, really.
Yeah.
So I had to translate this knowledge of 2D storyboarding, which is very classic, like you have cuts and edits and you only show what's in the frame that you want people to see, and what is on the frame is important. Anything outside of that simply does not exist, quote unquote.
Okay.
But when you get into VR, it's anyone can look around. So how do you direct the eye? So I had to, really research things. I had to read up things. And Sammy, you sent me a lot of wonderful content. And like, once I got the headset and kind of experienced films and what others had done before me, I was able to kind of ramp up. But it was a little bit of a trial and error. And I would say that, even having a 2D experience of how it should work in a classic 2D format, even in films and animation, it still took a little bit of practice.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I remember when you were storyboarding 2D, when you first started, it was like just 2D.
Yeah.
And then at some point they turned into a 360 panels, but they were still 2D.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
interesting.
blown. I was like, how did you do this but on a 2D plane?
Actually, what you inspired me to do that, because you had flattened out a piece of artwork where we were working in my kitchen and in the film, and you wanted to see something behind you, or behind what would be us as the viewer. And then I looked at that, I was like, oh, I should be storyboarding more like that. So Samia can see what's going on behind her, what's going to the left of her, what's going to the right. Because it's not really, it'd be important for you to see the front, but it's also important to see the side. So how do you show that? And just kind of, there's a lot of natural back and forth between us, which I found really wonderful.
So does that mean that when you say that you were storyboarding in this new way, were you doing that physically on a piece of paper, for example, and then just wrapping that paper around you or something like that? How did that look?
What I was doing was, in 3D, you kind of unwrap objects and you flatten them out, just like if you were to flatten a cube, you get that weird like rectangle with a little cross.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically looks like that. So I was thinking about it in a 3D space and then imagining of flattening it. And since I could draw faster and get it to Samia quicker that way, that's just how we worked.
Got it.
She would give me the 2D, and I put it in VR in front of me, so it would be like floating, and then I'll go on the headset and then draw around me like what she gave me in the 2D image. That's like 360.
I see. And I mean, this must have been incredibly difficult for you both to ramp up on. What resources did you lean on? Did you have a community to go to seek help and ask questions? What was that like?
So for me, actually, the way I got into VR is I met Goro Fujita, and if anyone don't know his name, he's like really big in the quill world. He does these drawings every day and really inspiring. So he was my mentor and actually would teach me like how to do things and get me comfortable in the space. Because one thing that with your question, like what was the difficulties ramping up, is I used to get nauseous in VR. So
that's a common problem, and it's pretty tough for people who've never experienced it and are trying it on for the first time. How did you overcome that?
Yeah, so imagine if you're like drawing something and then you flip the canvas because you want to get a better angle. So you don't realize it, but as you're doing this, flipping back and forth, you're slowly getting nauseous and nauseous and nauseous, and the moment you take it off, you're just like, I'm gonna throw up.
Yeah.
So that took a bit of time where you, I recommend that people just take it easy and like maybe do like 30 minutes, take a break, 30 minutes, take a break. Don't sit 6 hours in there. That will just destroy you.
I did that, and then I had to call Samia.
I remember. I did
like,
you.
why do I feel so bad? And she's like, chill.
I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't tell you.
Yeah, I mean, there's a science to it, right? It's kind of like when you get car sick, your eyes are seeing something and the rest of your body is feeling something else, and that imbalance creates this terrible nausea, which for a lot of people in VR, that's what you're getting. You're simulating car sickness, basically.
Yeah, and then even if you're doing it yourself, you'll just make yourself sick, even though your brain knows that you just did this, but it just
Got it.
So.
But I mean, not to say that that's not something that you can overcome. I'm curious, is that what played into your artistic choice of making people sit down for a stationary experience in the film?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about like the feeling part of it. So the film is basically a story about the person, whoever's viewing it, is going through my memories from childhood to like now. And I wanted that person to sit in my seat to give it the feeling that's like, okay, the first scene, you're on this table, your camera is kind of lower because you're a child, and then you look up and there's your grandparents. Like I drew my grandparents, but I'm hoping it kind of symbolizes like most people's grandparents and how they viewed them. So that was the feeling part of it, why seating was a choice. But we went back and forth on that, and Mirella definitely did that.
So we wanted to have like a full experience where you would look around, but we ran into a lot of technical difficulties with just the kind of keeping the film contained spec-wise, but also how to direct the attention and keep the attention. Because I didn't want people, it's wonderful to be in this environment, to look around, but that's its own experience. This is a film, and I want people to follow along Samia's like experience and feel what she's feeling, to communicate it. So we started playing around with the elements that go around you, and then we thought it might be a little too, like you would divorce yourself from the story. And so we decided to kind of sit everyone down at a table, and that goes back to the feeling part of the film, is that people can connect to just sitting down with someone and talking over things and enjoying that experience as a way to connect with others. And so it was both like a technical decision, just spec-wise and controlling the eye, but also emotional-wise, it makes the film stronger.
I loved that that feeling of just being a little child and everything around you is so much bigger, and you really feel it. And I think that's what makes VR such a special medium, that you can literally put people in your shoes, and feel what you're feeling in that moment, and transfer that mental image into a very literal sense to someone else. I think this is a great segue into the film itself. I'd love to know why did you think this was an important story for you to tell? What was the inspiration here?
Originally it started as just like, here is a food journal of all the foods that I like and the people that I had it with. And then with like Mirella, when we were like working on the story, I was basically like not sure where to start from because it was a lot. And then Mirella asked me to basically, what did you call it? Like
I asked you to journal entry, and I asked you to like just think about the experiences that you've had that are really near and deep to you, and just write as if you're writing to yourself or in a journal. And then I got to read all of it.
I like sent her like pages and pages of like word vomit, because she was like, just write whatever you want. I was like, are you sure this is gonna get really out of control? But no, this is what helps.
It does, because it allows you to kind of loosen up, and you're more likely to include things that you think you might need to cut out in that film. But the feeling of being included with your family members as they made coffee together, that's extremely important. The fact that you put in a journal entry means that story-wise, we need to frame this to make you feel that. So why don't we like scale you down? Why don't we make the space like enclosed? Your grandparents are around you, and so little things like that. And it wasn't a bother to read at all. It was very informative. And the only tricky thing is that I think you have to be really good friends and really good coworkers and really good like people to have that trust within each other to read that and put it on the screen.
Yeah, it definitely helped that we've been friends for a long time before that I felt safe telling her like really deep into my like thoughts and feelings. I don't normally share in like my day-to-day art. I keep it kind of like, I mean, I put feelings in it, but not like the deep inside. I was just like, I'll let it all out.
Morella's like, okay, I gotta read the rest of that. There's some more content in there.
And then along like while we're doing this, I realized that I owe all this like food adventuring and trying new things to my uncle. My uncle passed away 2 years before I started working on the film, and it was really rough. And
sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and I felt like this film is gonna be for him and his family. And once like I realized that, that's when it was like Mirella was like asking me all these like deep questions, and I know we were working on the film, but at the same time it felt like it was like a healing journey for me. And you're good at it. You're like a therapist, a script writer, a storyboard artist, emotional like support friend.
It's very like it's a very emotional thing to talk about and to put on a screen and for other people to look at and judge. You have to be really, really careful with that. And so it was very important to me to never put something on the screen that you weren't comfortable seeing up there. Some people want to lay it all out there, and I understand that. And there are times when you do need to do that, I think, for story, but I think just putting something on the screen that you're comfortable with and happy with at the end makes that.
Yeah, and I mean, just on your uncle's character, it's really interesting. I felt that when I was watching the film. It's not like his character is there for a very long time on screen. If you just count the seconds that this character is being depicted, it's not that long. But in that short amount of time, you could feel that emotion in it. That, okay, I understand that this story is about love, and for this person specifically, and they play a very pivotal role for not being there too long in the story itself. So I think that was really, really beautifully done.
Thank you. Thank you, Mirella, for doing that.
I'd love to know that, speaking of inspiration and what makes you write these stories, what is your process like for both of you? I know that sometimes artists struggle with should inspiration come to you or should you go to inspiration? And this is something that I personally struggle with as well. It's, there's this romanticized idea that, oh, one day you're going to be walking down the road and something amazing is going to come to you, and now you're just going to work on that, right? Or is it more painstaking than that? What is the process like for both of you?
I'll try to answer this. I like to keep myself open to experiences, and what I've learned, at least for myself, is that I never know when something interesting will happen in front of me, or if I'll have a revelation. So in my ideal world, it's actually me doing lots of different things, like waiting in a DMV, and oh, I'm about to go next, and suddenly I see someone, just the way that they walk in, their attitude is just an instant story.
Yeah.
And I'm usually scrambling. I usually have a notebook that I keep around me at all times because I usually scramble. And I start jotting down, and someone at the DMV is like, "Next, come here." Like, my idea is running away.
Who knew that the DMV was the key?
Inspiration.
The subway is a great inspiration for me.
Wow. Yeah.
I like to stay open because when you're relaxed and just kind of look around, there's so much storytelling and stories going on around you that you never really know how you're going to weave it together. At least that is the story. That's how it works for me.
Yeah.
I'm usually not the kind of person that can, once I start going, ideas will come, but I think staying open for me is the best case.
Yeah.
What about you?
Big part of me getting inspired is whenever I go sketching out with friends.
Okay.
So Mirella, when I see her sketching, I'm like, oh, that's so pretty. I want to do something now. It's inspiring. But if I'm by myself, I just discovered this recently, a flow to get into it, but it doesn't work every time. Before I would just sit and suffer and just why is it not coming out?
Nice.
Come on. Or I think oh, did I just reach 30 and ran out of ideas? Is this the age where you just don't have any more ideas? But anyways, the thing that I discovered recently was with my therapist. Actually, she was like, remember a time when you just feel free and time just passes by and you don't actually feel it, and then suddenly it's night. And for me, that was when I was a kid. I used to wake up at 6 a.m, wake up my sister, and play with Barbies for 7-8 hours straight.
I miss that.
Just changing stories and coming up with ideas and not having any judgment about whether it's good or bad. If it doesn't work, just move on to the next one. And I realized when I kind of let go of those judgments that you put on yourself as an artist and also just as a person, I make space for ideas to arrive.
Yeah.
Doesn't work every time, but it has more chances of working than me sitting at a desk and just
Yeah. Judging yourself is a really hard thing to let go of, and I don't think I've seen a good piece of art come out of this over scrutinized state of mind where you're canceling all your ideas before they're even down on paper.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's wonderful that you're discovering that about yourself and about the process as well.
It's a learning process.
Yeah. I'd like to talk a little bit about the technicalities of animation, and I'd love to talk about how, what is the space for anyone who's not familiar with animation, including myself. How would you break that space down, and then how does that translate into VR and the future of VR and filmmaking as well, from your perspective? So let's start with, how would you break down animation for anyone? What is the space? What does it mean to be an animator?
It's interesting because I've always thought of animation as storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's different, like storyboarder, storyteller, writer, there's different differentiations. But in the end, even with any animation, you're telling a story.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that idea and what you want to say is the very first step for me. Then after that, in the 2D format, I would just go by like, okay, what is most important? What I want to say? How does this thing get me to that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you want to like? Is there anything that you want to put in and say to that?
I think after the storyboarding and like coming up with a good story, I think definitely having like the practice and technical skills and patience. You need a lot of patience.
Yeah.
A lot of things get thrown into the trash.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, like, yo, that's my job. So you have to be okay with like letting go of things.
Yeah.
And not be too hard on yourself. That just need to be correct the first time, because it's like constant work.
Got it. Yeah.
Whether it's like 2D animation or like, like 3D or in VR, definitely having patience is important.
Yeah. I'm curious, do either of you feel like there are stories that you prefer to tell through animation, or is that, is there something that animation gives you that a live action film doesn't, for example?
Can I talk about my film in that regard?
Sure.
Yeah. So when we were working on the film, it was during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So like if I were to do this during like with real people, I would have never been able to get everyone.
Yeah.
Also, not everyone in the family is still like alive with us right now.
Mm-hmm.
So these two things were like, oh my God, like making this animation definitely solved these two problems. And the other thing is like, for me, I'm not really good with words.
Mm-hmm.
So even if I try to describe to a person what my vision is, it's not the same as me actually going in the space and drawing it and showing it to that person.
Yeah.
So it's like an easy gate into my mind to just do it through animation rather than try to I've never done live action, so I'm sure that has a lot of other challenges, but for me it's like animation or drawing feels like the easiest way to show the person what I'm trying to say.
Okay, I see. Mirella, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'd say that something that I've noticed that animation has for me, or maybe live action, is that you can create this world that you can yourself create it, and you can create metaphors and things that would be very difficult to shoot in live action unless you get special effects involved and stuff. And I really appreciate that because you can create it, you can symbolize a very abstract concept and create, giant floating macrons.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, like, oh, what can this macron represent? How would I push this concept? And how does the viewer think about macrons? And I don't know, there's a lot of like pushing boundaries that I really enjoy about animation, that creating these like things that you can experience in a sort of arm's length. So it's like a safe way to experience something that would be otherwise scary. And the film doesn't do that. I think animation just kind of provides this other element that you can explore there.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely makes sense. It's like almost a sense of additional control that you have over the experience that you can curate for someone over live action, which, like you said, I think it takes a lot of resources to make something look good and convincing in live action. Animation, I think, is like an interesting canvas where you can make things that aren't realistic feel realistic. Yeah, in a different environment.
I think definitely in VR, feeling realistic, like it's because your brain knows it's not real, but then you can reach and like you don't feel it, but then your brain sees that your hand is touching something, so you were like, oh my god, it's a tomato, I'm touching a tomato. That's not it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder where the future of technology will lead us to, maybe hopefully to a place where we can touch something or at least feel like we're touching something.
Yeah.
I wonder if this is a medium where you can really convincingly help someone empathize more with a character that they maybe didn't really have empathy for before. Yeah. I wonder, it takes a lot of people to create a film like this. Were there any challenges that you faced in finding people to make this come to life? Or, it takes sound, it takes animation, it takes so many different things to really put the whole package together. What was the process like of getting that full package complete and presentable?
I had a really amazing producer / friend help with the film, Ryan Thomas, and his mind of just organizing and getting everyone to be like on track. Like even for me doing a schedule for me, like when like this needs to be done, when this needs to be done was like super helpful to see, because I also needed to do voice acting, which I've never done that before, so I was like very nervous about it. But he was like, okay, like practice doing scratch like audio, and then by this date you're gonna go to the real thing and we'll practice, like do it, and it's not like don't worry, we have extra days to plan for it. So having a good producer definitely helped, and then Goro was also a good mentor. Like if I ran into technical issues or like questions, like I'll be like, hey, can I hop on a call? I need something else done, please help. So he was always like there, like ready to step in. And then obviously working with an amazing storyboard artist and script writer, that definitely like a weight lifted off my shoulders, and I'd be like, here you go.
Let me figure this out. Let me put it back to you.
So like even though we're a small team, it's definitely made the whole experience fun to work with. Also, the music director Paul Gorman was amazing to work with, because he wanted to have a music that like still relates to my culture, but also like fits all the different cuisines, because the cuisines, like I was like eating them.
That's true. You talk about a lot of different parts of the world as well in the film, so staying true to all of that. How did he manage to achieve that?
So I don't know it's maybe he didn't notice it, which is good. That was his goal. He wanted to like have music relate to every scene, but it transitions so smoothly that you can't tell that the music changed with every scene. And then at the end, it loops back to the music from the beginning, like the soundtrack.
I need to rewatch it now, because I feel like I'm getting all these insights into the film.
And the After Effects sound. Sorry, not the After Effects. The sound effects. That made a huge difference, because I remember when we were watching it early on and there was no sounds. Like it was like, yeah, it's working, but I'm not really believing it. But then once remember the pigeon scenes when they flutter? Once that sound was in, it was like, oh my god, there's actual pigeons there.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I wonder, is that like Foley art or getting digital recordings of different sounds?
So actually the sounds were animated. So you know how the pigeons moved? There's a sound, what do you call it? Like the speakers. The speaker moves around your head, so it sounds like they're actually flying around you.
So it's like spatial audio.
Yeah.
So if you close your eyes right now, you're talking from this side. There's maybe someone else on my other side, and I can hear them more from this direction, right? So that's simulating that environment in a virtual spaces.
And like layered sounds, so like for the further away things, like there's still sound, but it's like so far away in the distance.
There's it's so beautiful. I think that there's so much technique and thought involved in creating this realistic but animated experience in this environment. Do you have any advice for anyone who wants to get into this space, who might be interested in learning more about animation and then VR filmmaking as well?
I can recommend the virtual animation group. It's a group led by Goro Fujita and a bunch of other VR artists that's also doing amazing work. And it's a free group on Facebook. Anyone can join it, ask questions, also look at what other people are making. They also do bi-weekly, I think, either bi-weekly or weekly live talks. And then there's also a Discord channel. where you can all ask questions and look up tutorials made by like different artists on the group.
Yeah.
And it's all free, so all the resources are online for anyone to get into it. And you don't need to be like an artist, like if you're just interested to see how it works.
Yeah, that's really reassuring, because I think there might be people who don't have the background in animation or something, so it'd be really nice for them to be able to dabble with this and just try it out for themselves as well.
Yeah.
I was just going to add, in terms of like just getting started, I've always liked kind of having a daily practice. So I think there's a lot to gain, even if you just do journal entries, to look back on them and see if there is a story in your journal entries. And
yeah,
a lot of people turn down their own ideas because they're like, oh, I just went to the DMV, I saw someone who was strange, and it made me think about things. The end. But wait, there's something interesting there. So in terms of just getting started, I think resources like that are really helpful, and also just kind of understanding your own voice and seeing what kind of stories you want to tell and what interests you specifically about the media and how you can use the media to accentuate you.
I think that's wonderful advice. Thank you. And I think that I would love for other people to be also to follow your journey and see maybe what's next, that no pressure, that you're both working on together or individually. I think it's really nice to be able to have role models and just see what other artists out there are doing. That alone, I think, is inspiration as well for people. So for anyone who'd like to see the future projects from Mirella and Samia, please follow them on Instagram. Mirella's handle is MirellAToncheva, Mirella Toncheva, and Samia's Instagram handle is Samsoonful, very cute.
As story for that.
Oh, let's
Only
hear that. SAMSOOMFULL. And then additionally, I'd love to share for anyone who's interested in this space and in filmmaking, animation, VR as well, that the Arab Film and Media Institute also shares a lot of these resources on our website. So please check out the website. We always constantly have opportunities that are being put up there, or just links to resources like the one that Samia and Mirella just talked about today. So we'll be sharing that on there as well. With that, thank you both so much. It was wonderful having you here, and I loved getting into the nitty-gritty details of how you made this beautiful film. And I encourage anyone who has a headset or whose friend has a headset, please check it out. It's free on the Oculus store. It's called KTEER TAYYEB, beautiful film about food and relationships.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Fantastic.